adjustments for the town of Barrington. Should you, calling the meeting to order at 7 p.m., should you choose to, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I ask that you start with a roll call attendance?
Present. Flanagan present.
Fairfield present.
Bill present.
Hardikoff present. Town planner.
Vanessa Price, town planner present.
James Jennison, zoning administrator present.
Thank you all. First up before you is an action item, request for rehearing 226-50-14 appeal, owners Darrell and Michelle Kelly, request by the applicant for an appeal of an administrative decision that a variance was required from Article 3, Section 3.1.6, Site Plan Review Regulations, and Article 19, Commercial Keeping of Farm Animals at 17 Coachman Drive, map 226, lot 50-14, in the Neighborhood Regional Zoning District. The request was made by legal representative Brian R. Barrington, Coolidge Law Firm, 98 High Street, Somersworth, New Hampshire. After taking training this weekend, just to be clear, this is a public meeting, not a hearing for the ZBA to decide, discuss, and then vote on whether a rehearing would be appropriate, and to correct if there is a possible procedural or substantive mistake that occurred prior. Could you possibly read the legal representation's letter? Because he's not here, correct? Okay, we'll read it, and that will. Okay, that's perfectly appropriate.
The letter. The letter read into records from the Coolidge Law Firm, dated, received from the Land Use Office on January 31st, 2024. Is in reference to Kelly versus Land Use Department, Town of Barrington, case number 226-50-4, request for a rehearing. Now come Darrell and Michelle Kelly of 17 Coachman Drive, Barrington, New Hampshire, 03825, and request a rehearing in the above captioned matter of the oral decision on January 17, 2024. The board did act arbitrarily and ignored the weight of the uncontested expert advice evidence that the nature of the waste and the size of a miniature goat producing low odor pellets is substantially dissimilar to the category of sheep, horses, and cows that weigh up to 1,000 pounds. The three people that voted against the appeal, as well as the abutter, all recited the noise and smell of chickens and geese. The abutter and three voting against the appeal ignored the plainly stated appeal as to how the definition of farm animals that made no mention of goats should be applied. Any appeal to the Superior Court is based upon the record and the request for a rehearing. A transcript of the rehearing absolutely supports the point that none of the three members voting nay stated how their decision was being made in regard to the question. Instead, they seem to be making their reasoning only for a variance hardship appeal and impact on the neighborhood. This appeal does not cover the variance standards, as in fact these farm animals are permitted by the ordinance, but is ambiguous as to how the ordinance as written applies to miniature goats. The attachment to the appeal is now restated so that the members at the next hearing can focus on the question. Project narrative. For the years, the owners have had a neat fenced-in chicken area and coop with 10 hens and a rooster. They also have 2 pet miniature goats. The goats are less than 23 pounds. The pet goats go in the home and are highly intelligent. Miniature goats have now become a common pet and are more similar to large vegetarian rabbit than common livestock animals of sheep, hogs, horses, and cows. They would like to maintain this number and mixture of animals used strictly for family enjoyment and not outside sale of any agricultural products. The neighbors who moved to Barrington from other towns and cities are not accustomed to any domestic fowl and have complaints. The code officer did not issue a cease and desist order, but only suggested that the owners apply for a variance. There's been no specific order, so there's no specific time to bring an appeal of the administrative decision. The ZBA within 30 days denied the variance, and upon consultation with legal counsel, being Brian R. Barrington of the Coolidge Law Firm, a former city attorney, they now seek an appeal instead of a variance. The Barrington zoning ordinance requirements. Agriculture use is permitted in our district. The neighborhood residential district is intended to promote medium-density residential development in the central part of town, which is relatively close proximity to municipal and school services. The regulations have been fashioned to provide the incentives for developing larger tracts of land in a way that promotes efficient use of the land and creates adequately sized parcels of open space that can be used for public recreation and our conservation purposes. One of the primary goals for open space in this district, as identified in the master plan, is to create trail linkages to public and commercial activities in the adjoining village district as well as other surrounding districts. The regulations for this district are also intended to allow for small scale businesses, uses, or establishments. Only if such uses are operated in conjunction with residential uses and developed in compliance with specific standards specified in this ordinance. The intent of this ordinance is to allow agricultural use that does not inordinately interfere with residential use, but does not guarantee that animal adverse homeowners can ban farm animals within their hearing. Article 18, definitions of agriculture and farm animal controls. First, there's no dispute that the Kellys are not engaged in commercial keeping of farm animals for financial gain. The goats have some milk for family use. The chickens produce less than 2 1/3 dozen eggs that are used by the family or given to friends. The animal density definition of 1 per 5,000 square feet of lot area for chickens, ducks, rabbits, and other similar animals apply. Lot 14 has 1.978 acres for 85,272 square feet plus or minus. See the attached subdivision plan. Therefore, they are allowed 17 chickens, ducks, rabbits, and other similar animals. The current use is allowed if the board finds and agrees that miniature pet goat is more similar to a rabbit than a sheep. Sheep are very dumb and large animals. The attached reference materials indicate the full-grown sheep is about 150 to 200 pounds and creates a far greater amount of manure than a miniature goat. Sheep have never been domesticated enough for indoors. The criteria used to analyze this issue, being a zoning case, is the impact of animals upon the land and the neighbors. Miniature goats do not produce as much manure or loud as sheep. The neighbor's main complaint is the rooster, but the rooster is allowed. The pet miniature goat does not impact them at all in this nearly 2-acre lot. Respectfully submitted, Daryl and Michelle Kelly by Brian R. Barrington.
Thank you. So in your discussion board, you are to decide, discuss, and then vote on whether a rehearing would be appropriate at a future date. And again, to determine whether all matters, major or minor, of practical concern regarding the prior hearing and whether the procedure that was followed was appropriate. Any discussion?
Yes, I do want to point out something. What is not included in the request for rehearing that I think is important, and we all have at our fingertips here, is what the statute actually says when it comes to a request for a rehearing, which is that a motion for rehearing made under RSA 677-2 shall set forth every ground upon which it is claimed that the decision or order complained of is unlawful or unreasonable. So the standard that we're looking at here is unlawful or unreasonable, but the allegations included in what's provided is did act arbitrarily and ignored the weight of the uncontested evidence. So I think what we need to look at is, for the members who are present at that hearing, what evidence was actually considered by the board in making this decision.
And without revisiting any of those facts, we need to determine individually as 5 members.
Parker recused himself from this,
He could if he chose to.
if he chose to. Okay.
I think because it's a basis of procedural or substantive mistake in the case that he's not required to. I feel comfortable that decisions were lawful, they were reasonable, that all major and practical concerns regarding the matter were displayed, and that procedurally we acted appropriately.
Without revisiting the specifics of the evidence presented, the key argument in what the petitioner has provided today is that the belief of the petitioner that the crux of their argument was that the animal was more like a smaller animal, and that we as the board did not consider that. And I disagree with that.
I would disagree with that as well. I think that was very well considered in that case. Okay. Any other discussion?
I would agree with that as well. We listened to.
We can't revisit it, but we just need to know,
So
did
I
we
think that
bring
we did
forward
weigh
all
that very
practical and major
carefully.
concerns?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion regarding this case?
Sure.
Well, let me ask this. Do you have any other questions or concerns in reference to whether you effectively followed procedure and whether all practical and major concerns were addressed? Okay, then if I would entertain a motion.
So I move that we as a board deny the request for rehearing on the basis that the moving party has not met their burden of proving that the board acted unlawfully or unreasonably, and that the board effectively followed procedures and addressed all practical and major concerns in the appeal hearing that was originally heard in January.
I would second that. Could I have a roll call, please?
Samaco, aye.
Flanagan, aye.
Fairfield abstain.
Thibodeau, aye.
And Hardikoff, aye. Thank you. Next before you is new application 102-84-GR-24-VAR, owners John and Mary, I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly and I apologize, Hool. Thank you. Request by the applicant for a variance from Article 4, Section 4.1.1, Table 2, the front setback requirement in the general residential zoning district to allow a new home to be constructed. The proposed front setback is 33.1, where 40 is required. And before I continue, in the application, I thought there was also a side setback variance being requested that is not listed in the actual description.
I think they're both on the same line,
Mhm.
on the same application. Right.
Hang on one second. It is on there, but I don't see it listed in the description.
I saw it in here. See it.
The side setback that's being requested is where 30 is required. Thank you.
So it's both on the same
Yep.
application.
And let me finish if you would. Both on the same application and listed appropriately. The location is on Longshore Drive, map 102, lot 84, on a 0.53 acre lot in the general residential zoning district. Our next case will be 102-84-GR-24 variance request by the applicant for a variance on Article 5 non-conforming lot structures and uses, Section 5.1.4 in the general residential zoning district, to allow to keep an existing well with the home on Longshore Drive, map 102, lot 84, on a 0.53 acre lot in the general residential zoning district. Does the board choose to entertain both variances together for the purpose of discovery and fact-finding?
When you say both, you're talking the well issue and the
Setbacks.
setbacks? No, I think they should
You'd
be
like them
separate.
separate, okay? Any other opinions in reference to that? Okay, we'll proceed with them separately. So 102-84-GR-24 VAR. It is listed on page,
And is there, I'm sorry, variance,
just want to be clear.
the variant, this part up here,
Mm-hmm.
he did not only put one.
18 where 30 is
Oh, wait a
required.
minute.
It's listed. It was not captured in the posting.
Oh, it is right.
It is part of the application. Are we comfortable proceeding? Okay. Typically, what we have you do,
So we're doing the setbacks first, right?
yep, setbacks first.
Setbacks.
Are you signed off, John, to represent?
I'm not, I'm just
Okay.
here to kind of help them out a
Okay,
little bit.
very good.
Because there's
So-
some confusing
Yep.
issues with some of this. So
So what you'll do is you'll read the variance requested as you've written in your application, and you'll read the 5 areas of the variance criteria, please.
Okay, so
Thank you.
the variance is requested from section 4.1.1, table 2, zoning ordinance to permit masking for front setback of 33 feet where 40 is required, and a side setback of 18 where 30 is required. B, 5 variance criteria set as forth NHRSA 674-33-1B. Please demonstrate the compliance or whatever. So granting variance will not be in contrary to the public interest. The house is set back as far as the site restraint will allow because of the ledge. 2, granting a variance would be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance, locating the house as best in complying as possible because of the restraint of the lot. 3, granting of the variance would be substantial justice. It would be of substantial justice to allow me to have a house on the lot. Granting the variance will result in diminution of the surrounding property values. A new house will increase the value of the neighboring home's value. Is there more?
Yep.
All right, literal enforcement of the provisions in the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship. The following special conditions of the property distinguish it from the properties in that area. Special conditions of the property because of ledge. No fair, substantial relationship exists between the general purpose of the ordinance provision and specific application of that provision to the property because I'm meeting the general purpose of the ordinance by setting my house as far back as possible. The proposed use is reasonable, one, because a residential home on a residential lot is a reasonable use. That's all I got on this.
Okay. We received any comments from abutters that would like to be entered into a record?
I believe there's one in the packet, that there's also 2 folks online.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay,
those of you online,
hang on one
oh,
second.
sorry.
Is there anything else you need to tell us that we're not able to easily digest from the actual layout that you've provided?
I've had a man there with an 85,000-pound hammer, and he's been hammering it for 2 months, and he's gone down 15 feet, and we're pretty much as far back as I can go.
Okay,
It's just it's the hardship of trying to push it even further in and get the distance I need.
are you putting a full basement under the
Yes.
property?
Yeah. And I've already gotten permission, I got the neighbor that's abutting it right next to it, he's approved with it and signed
To the
everything.
right or the left?
On the right where the 18-foot is.
Mm-hmm. And how many feet are you from a structure on the other side?
I would say about 100 feet.
this neighbor here.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if you're 18, he's probably about 50, so that'd be.
Oh, no,
about
she said the
68
other
feet.
side, that'd be me.
Oh,
I gotta be about 80 to 100 feet away.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant before I open public hearing? Okay. Would anyone online like to make a public comment? You can mouse over your screen and then click on the little hand icon, raise your hand and let us know that you'd like to speak. We will be entering into the record any comments that have been provided by abutters. Okay, seeing as no one has raised their hand online, we will read only into record the comments related to I'm gonna have you do that. There you go. One comment written for public comment.
Received by the Land Use Office on April 23rd, 2024 for the Barrington Zoning Board of Adjustment. I own the property at 322 Longshores Drive on tax map 102, lot 85. Our neighbors, the Hools, are proposing to develop their lot to the west of us. We understand that this development will require a variance for the house to be built within 18 feet of our shared lot line instead of the required 30 feet. They have discussed the project with us and we are in full support of this request. Charles Sepala Jr.
Very good. Thank you. At this time, seeing no one else has joined us, I'm going to close public comment. Any other questions, comments, or concerns from the board? No. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion in reference to this application?
I would like to make a motion.
Mhm.
I am going to suggest that this variance, that we approve this variance for case 102-84-GR-24-VAR, because granting of this variance is allowing him to use his property the way that he expected to be able to use his property. It's in the spirit of the ordinance, because he is doing the best he can to keep it within the means that he is supposed to be able to keep it. It would do substantial justice because it makes sense for him to get the best use, which is to place his house upon that lot. And it will not be a diminution of the surrounding property values. In fact, it will help that by having new construction on there, and by not doing it really would be a hardship, because he's obviously spent a lot of time and resources to try to get this in the proper place, and has reached out and made the appropriate contact with his neighbors.
Very good. Thank you. Do I have a second for that motion? I'll second. Very good. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Samaco, aye.
Flanagan, aye.
Fairfield, aye. Thibodeau, aye.
And Hardikoff, aye. Next up before you will be case 102-84-GR-24-VAR by owners John and Mary Hool. Sorry. Request by the applicant for a variance from Article 5, non-conforming lots, structures, and uses, Section 5.1.4, in the general residential zoning district to allow the keeping of an existing well with the home on Longshore Drive, map 102, lot 84, on a 0.53 acre lot in the general residential zoning district. If you could please present that.
Could I give you guys a copy of the tax map?
Yeah, certainly.
We have a survey, though. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you could, just like you did with your first application, go through your reason for the application and the 5 criteria, please.
The variance requested.
Before you start, let me explain.
So, John, you can speak during public comment, but unless he has a document saying you represent him.
Well, he had asked me if I could explain this for him, and we talked to Vanessa about it before we got started, but he didn't actually write something because he's here to say that it was okay for me to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So I'll just ask the applicant, you're comfortable with having someone speak on your behalf? And your name, please,
I'm
sir.
John Huckins. I was
Thank
the
you.
zoning administrator when John came in with this originally.
Very good.
So what I wanted to explain is if you look at that tax map I just gave you,
Mm-hmm.
lot 82 is where his house is.
Mm-hmm.
84 and 84.1 were 2 separate lots of record when he started doing this and had his survey stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
And because he thought he had to merge these in order to get started, he came in and merged them while he was waiting for the survey. Now, if he would have not merged them, he would have been making each lot more conforming, so he wouldn't even have needed this variance. There was a mistake made which created the problem of needing this variance when if he didn't jump the gun, he wouldn't even be asking for this variance. That's why I thought it was important for me to explain this, because of how what's going on, which is a little different than a straight up thing of trying to make the lot smaller, a non-conforming lot even smaller, because technically he would have been making the non-conforming lot bigger and then the bigger lot bigger too. Both of them would have had an increase in size.
Understood. Okay.
I didn't know at the time. I thought I was doing better than I, I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
do have proof that I did merge them recently, though.
Okay.
We can see it on the survey. I mean, it's
Yeah.
clear.
Oh, this is the current tax map. He has, the tax map hasn't
Tax map
changed yet,
hasn't
even though he
reflected the
started.
survey.
Yeah.
Right. I can see the tax map says ACC, which is acres calculated.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it has not been surveyed.
So go ahead and proceed with the reason for your application, the 5 criteria, please.
All right, so variance requested. Variance requested from section 5.14 of zoning ordinance permit, decrease the size of lot 84. Granting the variance will not be contrary to the public interest because it will allow existing well to stay with the existing home. Granting the variance would be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. It will allow well to stay with home. Granting the variance would be substantial justice. It would require replacement of an existing well to my house and replumb and all that. Continue the variance will not result in diminution of surrounding property values. This will not affect surrounding values because the lot will be larger than the other house lots in the area. Literal enforcement of the provision of the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship. Following special conditions of the property distinguished it from the properties of the area. It would be an unnecessary hardship to replace a well to be on that lot of that house that uses. No fair and substantial relationship exists between the general purpose of the ordinance provision, specific application that provision to the property because the slight change in the area of the lot or replacing the well has no substantial relationship to the lot. The proposed use of the reasonable will be reasonable because keeping the well with the house.
Questions?
I do.
Please proceed.
The way I'm seeing this, so you're a butter on 82.
Yes. Is it 82?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lot 82. Put his well on 84.
I own all the properties and I wasn't looking at the line. The well guy came in, said I can back up.
You owned it at the time.
I've owned it for 12, 15, 20 years. Yep.
Okay, so you drilled a well on your other lot.
Yes.
And I know you brought this up, John, that combining these two and it does make it more non-conforming. But my question is, why wouldn't you simply just give an easement to 82 to continue to use that well and maintain it?
You know what? If I really told you, you'd be amazed. But my wife wants this on our property. We got this. It's 9 foot over setback, and I've done exactly what you asked her. And she wants the well to be with us. We just drilled it 3 years ago. She loves the water. She's worried she might get a rusty well again, and it's just a big.
All right, then I have another question because I'm not understanding. So on the new lot where you're putting a house.
Yeah.
On lot 80, now is it 80?
84, 80, yep.
Right. You're drilling another well.
I am.
Proposed well.
But it's gonna be a little further up for the septic that's going in there, yep.
Okay, so the house you're building on there is not for you. You want to keep the well and you're going to live in the house on 82.
I'm gonna stay there, but I'm keeping the one in 84 also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to be sort of an investment property or rental or whatever.
Well, I'm trying to get my son in there.
Okay. I still don't see why you can't continue to use that well with an easement. You
Well-
simply can use that well with an easement.
My wife's worried that if something happens and we have to sell for any reason, she doesn't want to have to re-deal with that whole
You
thing.
wouldn't have to. It's an easement. It goes with the land. It doesn't go with the owner. It goes with the land in perpetuity. So really, making this lot more non-conforming for the thought that it's the only way you can keep that well, it does not pose a hardship for me. I don't know how anybody else feels, but you can keep that well tied to 82 forever with a simple easement. You do not need to do a lot line adjustment and make 84 smaller. You just don't need to do it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so if I had waited on the merge, it would have been, I wasn't making it small, I was
Wouldn't
actually,
have changed anything.
Yes, it would.
Why?
Can I have your zoning ordinance?
I made a non-conforming lot even bigger. I could have built
Well,
two
number one,
houses.
let's just back up and say, had you waited in.
I know,
on
well,
merge,
I know.
What you have. So here we are now,
Well,
and it's merged.
I told him he could do the whole thing as a lot line adjustment, and he went ahead and went and saw Vanessa and did that because he thought he was doing the right thing instead of
I didn't
waiting,
know there was a
which is
step.
the step that I had told him. So if you look at.
John, can you back up a second? Say what you just said again, because I don't know if everybody else understood, but I didn't.
Okay.
So you said the step I told him, what does that mean?
I told him that he could just come in and do a lot line adjustment and keep his well on his property, and he could do that. He wouldn't even have needed a variance if he didn't go and merge them. He went and merged them afterwards because he thought that's what he was supposed to do while he was waiting for a survey.
All right, so you
made-
gave
So,
advice
so
and-
he made a
I
mistake,
made a mistake doing
right,
it too early.
so,
Okay.
Just to
And
be
that's
clear,
why
on my
I'm here
part,
trying
I
to
did
explain
not
that to
have
you.
that knowledge doing the lot merger.
Of the lot merge.
So my responsibility is for the lot merger. I did not know that John had told him to wait. I just wanna make that
And I'm
clear.
not blaming anybody, I'm not
I'm
blaming,
not trying to.
I'm not blaming anybody, it was my fault, I should have listened better.
I'm reading a survey.
okay.
No, I understand, and I understand totally.
I'm gonna
And it
like
was
rein us back in for a minute.
Totally my fault, whatever the results are, it's totally my fault. I
So
did it in
creating
the
an
wrong step.
easement would cost,
Oh, so if you go to section 5.1.4, if you guys look at it in zoning, so it says a lot line adjustment
Let me get there,
involving,
John. I want to make sure I follow you. 5.1.4, go ahead.
so it's basically, if you read down through that section, is it says that if you have a non-conforming lot, you can't make it more non-conforming.
Right.
So that's what the issue is that he needs relief for, because he's going to make the lot smaller than what was allowed. Now, if he didn't merge them lots, he would be taking 4.1 and merging 84.1 and merging almost all of 84 to that. And then he'd be taking a little piece of 84 and adding it to 82. So he'd be making both lots more conforming. He wouldn't be making it more non-conforming if he didn't merge the lots, because he'd be basically taking 3 lots and making them into 2 at the planning board level, because he has to go there now for that lot line adjustment. So because he wouldn't even have to ask for this variance if he didn't merge the lots. That's the point.
won't he,
And we're only asking, I don't know if you've seen it, I'm only asking for 9-foot
Yeah.
property line movement.
I have a question for you, though. Should your son not be the person residing on that property, in order for you to sell this property, the easement would need to be there?
Not if I move the property line. I'll be reacquiring that little 9-footer piece of property.
So the well would stay on lot 82.
Just gotta be within that boundary of 82.
Gotcha.
It solves the whole issue, that's what I'm trying to.
And if something happens and he ever sells it to his son,
Like
then
your
it's
wife
not,
should be, because it's all her fault, right?
Yeah.
well,
We don't blame wives in public meetings. Thank you all
She has
very
no-
much.
she has no
Try
Yeah.
to throw a little humor into this.
Uh-huh.
Paul, she has no idea what I've been going through.
Okay,
Okay,
So
so she
what-
does now.
yeah. So what other material information do you all need in order to make an appropriate decision?
Everybody else feel about this?
How do I feel? From a government standpoint, moving this because they could.
Oh. Go ahead.
Taking the relationship of the owners of all these properties out of this and all of the conversations that have not happened in front of them
Mhm.
and looking down this, an easement would forever solve this problem. It would also mean that as far as the zoning board goes, we're just saying take the easiest legal way out that doesn't cause us to fall back on ordinances. Because the easement solves it without actually moving it. If we allow the property line change, what other changes will come down the pike because of it? Be similar. People want us to do. I mean, all of a sudden, the ordinance basically gets modified by our action.
So nothing that happens in the zoning board of adjustments carries forward as a set precedent. It is a case-by-case basis each and every time that you address an issue.
except human nature says, oh, I heard Bob did it, now I can do it too.
I hear what you're saying.
As far as moving at 9 feet, it's not 90 feet. So there, I understand the argument, just, I think an ordinance is there because it's there. And if they allow the usage of an easement, that solves the issue completely forever. So there is no, well, what if my son inherits the house or I sell the house? The easement goes with the deed. It doesn't go with the owner.
And relief would not be required.
And planning board also doesn't need to get rolled into it.
What would it take to reverse, or can it happen?
I don't know
Reverse
if
this
it's- I don't know if
subdivision?
it's possible. I already thought about that. I don't know if it's reversible.
Oh, the merger? Because he did a voluntary merger, you can't just involuntarily take it out. Now, if you look at it, it says lot 84 and 84.4, 83 has disappeared. It's because the town had merged them before. And because the town had merged them before, but they were involuntarily merged, they got taken back out and made separate lots of record. And John was understanding that when he builds on that lot to make the setbacks work as much as he possibly could to try to stay in the center between the two lots to make his setback works. Technically, it kind of is a merger, but it would have been done as that lot line adjustment, like I said. So you wouldn't even have been here because he would have been making 84.1 bigger and he would be making 82 a little bigger. So therefore, he wouldn't have to ask for this variance and he could have just gone to the planning board and did his lot. He'd be making 3 lots into 2. So.
And John, as a third party yourself, we're here because the husband and wife don't agree on an easement.
No, we're here because.
Not looking at the town merged it and then he unmerged, not looking at any of that. The easement does solve this problem.
Yes, please, zoning administrator.
I'm new to the ZBA side of it, so bear with me if I'm out of line. The hardship I see is the contamination issue for the well if it's on someone else's property. He has no control over contamination issues if that's on someone else's property. And I think the more prudent process, because of the circumstances, is certainly taking into consideration that hardship. Thank you.
I would also add that I think in terms of valuing the property, should down the line, as a realtor, I know that people want to buy a property where the well is on your property and you don't need, and it's not an easement. So I think there is some impact to the value of the property not having the well actually on the property.
And I would just agree that from a legal perspective, an easement doesn't solve it entirely because it doesn't give you full autonomous control over the well when it's on someone else's property, just a right to have it be there and use it.
And maintain.
And maintain it.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? At this time, I will open up public comment, either for or against this application. If you'd like to speak in reference to this, please feel free to mouse over your screen, click on your nice little raise your hand icon, and let us know that you'd like to speak. Anything else been filed for the case? Seeing as there's no public comment, I will close that portion of this meeting and I will ask if the board is ready to make a motion.
Yes. So I move that case 102-84-GR-24-VAR, the request for a variance from section 5.1.4 in the general residential zoning district be granted for the following reasons. Granting the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. It allows the existing well to stay with the home without the potential of future property disputes should the lot, which currently contains the well, change hands. Granting the variance would be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance because it allows the well and the home to remain on the same lot. Granting of the variance will do substantial justice, again, because it avoids the possibility of future disputes. It is a hardship to have your well be located on someone else's property. granting the variance will not result in diminution of the surrounding property values. Actually, the inverse would be true because it would be a decrease in property value if you have your well on someone else's property. And literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship because it allows you to have and maintain the well, but not to have full control over it. There could be issues again in the future.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And could I have a roll call vote, please, beginning at that end of the table?
Smock, aye.
Flanagan, aye.
Fairfield, aye.
Thibodeau abstain.
And Hardikoff, aye.
That stuff back to Vanessa.
Could I please have a motion or any needed changes to the meeting minutes from the April, was it 17th? Yes, meeting.
Madam Chair, we also have the previous meeting too for March 20th.
Oh,
So
I'm
just
sorry, I
whichever
didn't
one you want
have
to do
that.
first, but I want to make sure that.
I don't think we got that one.
They were from the last time.
Oh,
If you want, you may
okay.
have my.
I was absent for this meeting, so I will recuse myself from that one. So let's proceed. Do we have a motion to approve the April 17th meeting minutes?
From where I presided?
Mm-mm.
No.
Last meeting.
Abstain, since
Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the April 17th meeting?
I move
to approve
the April 17th minutes as.
Okay, and a second?
Second,
Okay, and a roll call vote, please.
Flanagan, aye.
Fairfield, aye.
And Hardikoff, aye. Thank you. And then there were only 3 of you, I think, present on March 20th. So I'm going to ask one of the 3 of you to make a motion or let us know of any changes for the March 20th meeting.
Was that the meeting I presided?
Yes.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes for the March 20th meeting, March 2024.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a roll call from the 3 members that were present, please.
Flanagan, aye.
Thibodeau, aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. I will entertain a fabulous motion to adjourn.
I actually have one quick thing.
Yes.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Please.
Under other business, I just had something to, that's recently come about in discussions with town administrator and with one of our planning board members. We're interested in doing like a public forum meeting on a Wednesday in the upcoming June, just for almost an open house per se for residents of Barrington to kind of go over what the overview of rules, regulations, and processes for land use, planning, and zoning board members. Also kind of giving a plug out there to see if any, for joining the planning or zoning board. And then getting also any inputs from the community that they may have questions about zoning or regulations or suggestions. The meeting, I guess, essentially would be held by myself. I'll probably do a PowerPoint presentation, just explaining the roles of each board. And we're also wondering if board members of both land use boards could be present to answer any questions or
When is
have
our
any
next
feedback.
regularly scheduled meeting?
So our next regular scheduled meeting is the 3rd Wednesday, which is June 19th at 7 p.m. So we were proposing to try to not conflict too much with other people's schedules on the 12th of June, starting at 6 to about 7:30. I just put an hour, but open to discussion if y'all want to attend or if you think maybe we should have it more than an hour or shift the times or that sort of thing.
So I can be present on the 12th. I am going to let the board know I am headed to, I'm gone the 19th of June, so I will not be at that meeting. I'm traveling.
just print out real large so I can read it.
Really large, so anyone from space can read it, Mr. Thibodeau.
You did great last time.
So
Well, thank you.
would anybody else be interested in attending on the 12th?
I cannot attend.
Okay,
Um,
okay, that'd be great. As long as there's, I
I'm in
think,
town the
2.
13th, so I may be packing.
Okay,
I'll-
2 to 3 ZBA members would be great.
Okay.
So yeah, we can be available.
Okay.
Please send us that meeting reminder tomorrow,
Yep.
so I get it in my calendar.
So the,
Catered steak and mashed potatoes and stuff.
we already have light refreshments. I'd say however you take that as you will. The only other caveat, other than your all's participation, I was also going to present this to the planning board at our next scheduled meeting, which is the 21st of May. So I guess I should ask, is there an alternate date or time?
No, I'm leaving for.
Okay.
You get one
And I
done.
mean, I know, because the week before, it's like planning board
Say
stuff,
that.
then planning board and ZBA stuff afterwards. So I think that's kind of like the only date, unless maybe we schedule it in August, because I know in July, a lot of people are gone as well.
Okay.
Okay, I'll keep you posted. If it's not in June, we'll try for August.
So
Thank you.
So you're saying if this doesn't actually.
We'll get pushed out to August.
I'll probably get pushed to August. I think I think we're gonna have it either way.
Okay.
We just kind of wanted to gauge to see the interest of each land use boards, and I know that,
But
I know you have-
My life recently feels. Is planned where I keep running as fast as I possibly can. Cancel it, just remember when I show up on the 12th.
okay.
Back on the
Well, I'm
13th.
gonna plan on it.
Make Parker
I'm gonna
face
give
plan.
them-
Very good.
I'll bring you some coffee on the 13th.
There you
just
go.
to see if you
I
remember
will,
when I bring you some coffee.
I'll strong arm the planning board. Usually the planning
Oh,
board seems
Or
very,
just a call, hey Parker, I canceled.
Yeah, will do.
because,
Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
My unread inbox is like.
okay.
Very good.
Thank you. That's all, pretty much all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Anything you needed to share? Welcome to your new position, zoning administrator. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And a second.
Second.
And a roll call vote, please.
Flanagan, aye.
Fairfield, I.
Thibodeau, aye.
And Hardikoff, aye. Thank you all very much for joining us online.